If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. Welcome to another episode in our debut Spotlight series, where we shine the light on the freshest authors and their work. On today's episode, I am joined by the wonderful Saba Sams, who some of our long-term listeners may remember our interview with Saba back in 2023 about her amazing short story collection, Send Nudes. Well, today she returns to chat about her debut novel, Gunk, which is out now and published by Bloomsbury. Saba was raised in Brighton and now lives in London. In 2023, she was selected for Granta's Best of Young British Novelists. Her short story collection, Send Nudes, was published in 2022, and a story from that collection, Blue Forever, was awarded the BBC National Short Story Award, and the collection as a whole was shortlisted for the Swansea University International Dylan Thomas Prize and was named as a Sunday Times and Guardian Book of the Year. Her debut novel, Gunk, has been named as a 2025 book to watch out for in The Guardian, The Irish Times, Elle, Cosmo and Service 95, amongst others. And here to chat all about it, welcome back, Saba, to A Pair of Bookends.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've been so excited to get you back. And as soon as I saw the cover of this book I'm obsessed with anyway, but as soon as it was announced that you were publishing your debut novel, I was so excited and was like, I have to have you back on the pod. So thank you for doing this.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I got it. I saw it for the first time yesterday, and I got my first copy.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It is really, I love the cover, and it just feels like, I met my editor for a coffee, not knowing that she would have it, and she just whipped it out her bag, and I was like, it's it's really exciting.
It's so exciting. It is a gorgeous cover. I am obsessed with it. Before we dive into Gunk, though, I need to ask you one of my favourite questions, which is, what are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading Fun and Games by John Patrick McHugh.
I need to get my hands on this.
Yeah, he's like, I think it's out next week maybe, but because we're debuts around the same time, we have an event together. So I sent it to read for that. And if you liked Send Nudes, it's like perfect. It's kind of in my mind, it's like the boy version. It's really, he just does that kind of sticky thinking and kind of that constant anxious thinking, so that everything that he's doing, like, it's kind of a book where not loads happens, but just the internal monologue is so great, which is kind of just youth to me,
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really, really loving it.
I'm sold. You said if you like Send Nudes, you'll like this. I'm also obsessed with that cover as well. It's a really cool cover.
Yeah.
I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but I do think it always helps.
Easy to do. Happens all the time.
So your short story collection, Send Nudes, obviously received lots of much deserved hype. I absolutely loved it. Me and Lydia were raving about it back when you came on the podcast in 2023. I've seen loads of people online loved it, and obviously, the awards that you've received for it speaks for itself. Did you ever expect Send Nudes to receive all that love?
No, I really genuinely didn't. It was a weird thing because it came out, it was like just post COVID, and there was no launch, there was no I feel like I have like a publicity run for Gunk. I just didn't have that at all with Send Nudes. I think I did one interview online. I didn't have any like live events. It's a short story collection, so you're just kind of like, I feel like you're prepared by the publishing world to like not, they say that they don't sell, that like it's just, it feels like not a big deal to publish a short story collection, or it really did then. I think it's changing now a little bit, but yeah, it really surprised me. And it was a slow burn too. Like I think when it first came out, it felt it like, but I was getting like I got some nice reviews and it felt good. But then really it was a year later when I
Yeah.
won prizes that's when it felt like people were reading it, and I would like go into a bookshop and they would like have the book or like know who I was. And by then it had been a whole year, and I hadn't really thought about like paperback publication happening a year later. It was all just so new to me that everything that happened really, really took me by surprise. And just as it feels like it's fizzling out, something big would happen and I would be like, oh wow, like this. It was really amazing, and really, I think if someone had told me how it was gonna be, I would have kind of like freaked out and like run away. Like it worked out perfectly, but I had no idea,
Yeah.
because like now Gunk feels so much more scary because I
Mm.
know how it feels to bring a book out. And because I had no idea, I wasn't scared. I just like, which feels very Send Nudes to me, that like naivety.
Yeah. Why does Gunk feel more scary? Is it that whole kind of second book syndrome that,
I think so.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I think also it's that maybe you need some space
Hmm.
from a book, from your book. And the space maybe comes from it being like a free object in the world
Hmm.
rather than something that's just like in your laptop.
Yeah.
Like it goes from being something that I could like edit and change at any time to something that I just have no control over. And I need that space. But that space also comes with it being filled with like the opinions of other people.
Hmm.
Like I just reread it this week, like in the lead up to publication, and I still don't feel like I've had the space. I'm kind of reading it, and I'm like, oh, I would change that sentence. Like it still feels like something that belongs to me, and like I could
Yeah.
do that too. Whereas with Send News, I really don't. It feels almost objective now.
Yeah.
Like I haven't reread it for ages, but I don't have any kind of desire to like get back in there and edit those stories.
Mm. Did you already have Gunk in your kind of back pocket whilst you were working on Send Nudes, or was it that Send Nudes came out into the world and then you started on Gunk?
I think I knew that I wanted to write a novel about like some kind of motherhood, and
Yeah.
that I was kind of saving that because I'd had a baby when I got my first baby was a few months old when I got my book deal for Send Nudes. So, and I had a few more stories to write, so I could have written about the experience of having a baby and like
Hmm.
young motherhood specifically, and I just didn't. I just knew I kind of wanted to save it,
Mm.
and I had this kind of idea of writing. I wanted to write just like a birth scene that felt real. Like I hadn't
Mm.
read a realistic birth scene really ever, and I wanted it to like take up multiple chapters and like be long and really go on, and kind of force my readers to like really witness a birth. And that I kind of had that in my mind for a long time, but I had no sense of like the characters in Gunk. Or I was thinking today how I like how when your book comes out, you have to return to like the very first time that you conceive of the book in order to like work out how you want to talk about the book.
Hmm.
Like at the moment I'm kind of thinking like, oh, it'd be nice to write something new, and I'm having like ideas without character, without narrative, without plot. It's all of these kind of loose ideas that feel really inspiring and fun, but you have no sense of like what the book could be. And then you start writing the book and you have the characters and you lose the ideas completely because you're just following the characters. They're like real people, and you're just kind of like, oh, they would never do that or say that, and your ideas just kind of are like the sky above, they're just kind of hanging around. And so yeah, I kind of it feels like that with Gunk, like to kind of now return to all of those ideas. Like the idea that I just wanted to write a birth scene, but I didn't even know who like Nim and Jules were.
Hmm.
Strange to me now.
Let's introduce Gunk because I think we've made it quite obvious that we're talking about motherhood and there is a birth scene that I do want to come round to because it is beautifully written, but I will ask you about that. Could you tell the listeners what Gunk is about?
It's about a divorced couple. The main character is Jules, who narrates, and she runs a nightclub with her ex-husband Leon. And at the nightclub, they hire a girl called Nim, who's a teenager. She's 19, and Nim ends up getting pregnant. And her and Jules it's kind of about their relationship and the kind of messy alternative family that they create. Which sounds like it's really ruining the book, but somehow
No.
somehow it's like you sort of know all that from the start.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, isn't it? It's not really a book about plot anyway. But
No.
yeah.
No plot, just vibes. No, it is a beautiful story, and there's so much. I mean, I love your writing, and that was very apparent to me when I read Send Nudes. I think you're a beautiful writer, and I was so excited, as I said, to get my hands on this. And just the sentences you write and the scenes you write are so kind of visceral and evocative, and just yeah, just beautifully written. And there is so much of it that I was like, oh, I'd love to see this adapted for screen as well. Listeners will know that I'm just obsessed with adaptations, so I'm always kind of thinking in that way. But there are so many beautiful moments, and I want to ask first of all, of course, you've said that the book explores motherhood, but it's in all its kind of complexities, and you also explore the choice to want children and maybe to not want children. I am going to try and keep this spoiler free, but what was important to you with how you approached the topic of motherhood?
Yeah, like kind of like I was saying before, for me it was about I had this idea of witnessing and like how much I wanted it to be, rather than about like having to give birth in order to become a mother.
Hmm.
I wanted it to be about witnessing a birth. And even like there's this scene where they're kind of going to the hospital and Nim's gone into labor and the taxi driver's like, you can't get in my cab giving birth. You're like, what if you give birth in my cab? And it's this kind of moment where you realize that like society like refuses to witness birth as a whole. Like, you're not gonna like let your cab get messy.
Hmm.
Or it's like kind of, you're like shut away in a hospital, or you don't. I felt like after I gave birth, like no one really wanted to hear about it. It's kind of
Mm.
like messy and gross. But then actually birth can be radicalizing, and it is for Jules. She witnesses this birth. She doesn't give birth, and she's not a mother as in terms of like the narrow definition,
Mm.
but she sees during Nim's birth that like people come from each other and we're all interconnected, and you can like mothering becomes a verb rather than a noun, and
Mm.
it's a book that asks everyone to mother everyone else, and the like biological like technicalities of it don't matter. Yeah, I think like I wanted to make the characters in the book witness birthing, and I wanted to make my reader witness it too, just to kind of like really force this idea of interconnectedness. And yeah, I wanted to write about like the village that we need to
Yeah.
raise children in a world where like the village really doesn't exist, and everyone,
Mm.
and like I'm a parent and everyone's just constantly like, where's the village?
Yeah.
Like, you know and it just feels like it just comes down to this idea that like we just all need to look after each other, like we
Yeah.
are all indebted to each other.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. I think especially now that we kind of live in this age of social media and, this kind of obsession with productivity, and we've kind of isolated ourselves, haven't we? And not everyone's done that. That's quite a big generalization, but, a lot of us have isolated ourselves in this whole kind of busyness epidemic, and it means
Capitalism
there's
too, right?
not, sorry, go on.
It's capitalism too,
A
right? Like
100%,
I
yeah.
had I had to think of my characters in relation to capitalism when I was thinking about all of this. And Jules, who's like, she's just like given herself to work, and her relationship with her body is all to do with like usefulness.
Yeah.
And then when you have this set up with Nim, where they're kind of like, like one of them is giving the other one a baby, it like has to, for her it has to be transactional.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's the way that we like perceive of ourselves now is so far away from care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a line, isn't there, where Jules and Nim are talking, and I think does Nim say something about like, oh, not everything's got to be transactional, and Jules says, well, yeah, that's the world we live in, or it's something like that,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
so true. And I found it really kind of upsetting that I don't know if I can name this without giving a spoiler, but that one of them who's pregnant is working up until the point pretty much that she has to be stopped from working. It's like, you're so heavily pregnant, you can't possibly
Yeah,
be working anymore. And I was like, that is how, like, I'm 30 now, and I'm thinking about wanting children and stuff, and I'm like, I'm not in a position to afford a child. So I was like, that's going to be me. Like, I'm going to
yeah,
still be working multiple jobs, because how the fuck am I going to afford a child if I don't? And you're right, like, that's the society we're currently functioning in, and it's really fucking depressing.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And also just like how, yeah, like the free labor of being pregnant and
Yeah.
giving birth, and like breastfeeding and
Hmm.
raising children, or like women mostly some men, but like people are putting in free labor hours and hours and hours and hours to raise the next workforce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's what's happening right
Yeah.
now, and like capitalism fully depends on the free labor of like parents.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's depressing.
really depressing, and really, and then yeah, like the whole book hinges on this idea that Nim purely wants to give a baby
Hmm.
to Jules. Am I ruining it? I don't know. I don't think so.
No.
But she wants to give a baby to Jules like purely out of love, like just
Yes.
happy. And like nobody can understand that. Like
Yeah.
even I, when I was writing the book, I was just like, is this just like the most impossible concept
Hmm.
that this whole book hinges on? Because yeah, like doing something really big where you're like putting in loads of hours, you're using your physical body, you're using your time just purely out of love,
Hmm.
like so rarely happens now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing that she does. And I do want to ask about their relationship because I found that really fascinating. Because Jules works as a manager at her ex-husband's club, and Nim is this young person that comes in, works as a bartender at the club. And when she comes in, she's quite a lone wolf. She's moved to Brighton alone, and they have this quite easy intimacy between them that's almost instant, this instant connection, but the connection is quite difficult to define. So what did you feel that their dynamic represents?
When I was writing them, I had this idea of this kind of like uncategorizable relationship.
Hmm.
And to do that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to like make them fit into every category or make them tick every box
Hmm.
somehow. So like I wanted them to kind of have the dynamic of lovers and to like have the dynamic of maybe like mother-daughter, and also like their boss and employee, their housemates, they like become parents to the same baby, like all of this, or like I wanted them to be everything to each other. I was thinking just a lot about like the hierarchies that we like organize our relationships into, and the way that we like put other people into compartments in our lives, and like because of capitalism and because of limited time, we're like, oh, you can have this much time, like your like spouse gets this much, your parents get this much, and then like keep your friends over here, and your housemates even lower than that, you
Hmm.
know, and your employees even lower. And like it feels like there are so many rules now, like don't sleep with your housemates, or
Hmm.
like don't get too close to the people that you work with. I just kind of wanted Jules and Nim to just like fuck off all the rules
Yeah.
and see how that would look and how messy it could get, because I'm interested in writing messy things. But then equally, if through all the mess we could just kind of learn to like love each other better and
Yeah.
care for each other better, like
Yeah.
if we stop putting limits on our relationships, like what could happen?
I
Yeah.
think I think you see that as well with Leon. It is Leon, isn't it? I've just second guess
Yeah.
myself. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
who owns the club and is Jules' ex-husband. And I think their relationship was interesting because he is like a massive fuck up, and their relationship is quite rocky, and he kind of struggles with drinking and drugs, and he was unfaithful to Jules, and yet she still kind of stays in his orbit. And I was curious why you think she does that.
Well, yeah, I think she loves him,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't she? And she would like never admit it to herself. And she doesn't love him in a romantic way
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Or even, yeah, this is the thing. It's like another undefinable love. I guess that's
Yeah.
what you're saying. Like they couldn't call each other really anything at this point, apart
Mm.
from like my ex. But then that feels like much too big of a distance
Yeah.
between. And yet I think he cares about her too, as much as like we treat each other badly, and they all treat each other badly, and so do we in our lives, but they show up for each other in
Mm.
sense. And Leon, even though he's like terrible at showing it, and I think this is also what the book was trying to do, is like break down gender
Mm-hmm.
dynamics. Like there's so much kind of, I think like women think of men very badly now,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of wanted to write a book that like unpacked why that might be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not like so often men deserve to be thought of badly, like but also I am interested in like how easy it is to be like men are trash,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
why, like what who we're really serving when we say that.
Mm. Like this isn't hashtag not all men. This is like a more nuanced conversation
Yeah,
about,
exactly.
where we're being failed in men and women.
Yeah, and kind of like, I was thinking about like absent fathers,
Yeah.
obviously, in the book. And we're kind of like reimagining family, and we're like, oh, we don't need the men actually
Hmm.
now in the family, which is like fine and good. But maybe the men want to be in the family. They just need to be better at being in the family.
Hmm.
And I guess, we created the absent father because presumably because of like nuclear families under capitalism and men being away to work all the time,
Hmm.
giving the money. And now that's not how families work. Like most families, you need two incomes to even have a nuclear family
Yeah.
now. And there is no kind of one absent parent who's working away. And then men, fatherhood is changing now. Like where I live, there are loads of dads looking after the kids,
Hmm.
like dads in the playground. And yet this like it's very easy, I think, to dismiss fathers
Yeah.
and therefore allow fathers to be absent, which is what happens in this book. Like Leon is removed before he really has any say in it.
Hmm.
And like, yeah, he would be a shitty dad probably, but it feels like a slightly like inescapable loop
Hmm.
where if we kind of were just like asking more of each other, maybe we would be getting more.
I want to ask you about the way you build your characters because I think they're so like wonderfully fleshed out. And I even found it with, I know we're talking about Gunk, but I found it with Send Nudes in that even in your short stories, your characters were, felt like they had these whole lives that you were kind of privy to a moment in, and you don't always get that. And yeah, I want to know how you build up your characters and whether, you write quite a lot outside of the story itself.
I don't actually write outside the story itself much. I think it's sort of going back to what I was saying before about how you begin a book or begin a short story with
Hmm.
just like kind of ideas, and then you get the character, and then you follow the character, and then you forget the ideas. I really do follow my characters, like they do become very real to me, and they decide what happens in the book almost completely. Like I didn't have any kind of idea of a plot with this, and actually the whole form of it came really late. It was like the last thing that I did, because for the rest of the time I was just kind of like moving with the characters.
Hmm.
And yeah, I kind of like spend my whole first draft like forcing things to happen and being with the characters, and then you spend the second draft being like, oh, they would never say that, they would never do that, and then the plot becomes a whole different thing because you've like fallen in love with these people and you
Hmm.
need to like do them a solid.
Yeah.
And so I think it's probably more that why they seem real, because they just genuinely are real to me.
I really loved the Christmas scene in the book. I think that's one of my favorite parts because it's just this beautiful, wholesome day that Jules and Nim get to have, and it just starts with Jules going to meet Nim at the beach and watching her swim in the freezing cold water.
Yeah.
And, then she's going to spend Christmas with her parents, but then, she invites her to join them. And there's just something really beautiful about that whole day. I think it's that what you were saying earlier about us reimagining what family can be and us really looking out for each other. And, they have this moment at the beach and then she's like, yeah, why not come? Like, there's so many kind of, I don't know, like not societal rules, but like ways of being that, like, oh, you couldn't possibly just invite somebody randomly to your Christmas day, but you absolutely could.
Yeah.
And I loved that, and the gift as well that Nim gives. I just think it's so beautiful. It was such a beautiful scene.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like that scene, I was like, I really never planned for that to happen. Like I knew I wanted to see swim just because it's like very Brighton.
Hmm.
People swim on Christmas Day, and it is kind of a tradition. And I thought it would be kind of a cool thing for Nim to do, not being from Brighton. I could just
Hmm.
because of her character, I was like, oh, she would probably like be quite into that.
100%.
And obviously doesn't have like a family to spend the day with. And but yeah, then I was just like writing that scene, and then as always happens to me, because I think I'm quite a like because I'm a short story writer at heart, I everything happens so much faster than I think it will.
Yeah.
I've, like written this swimming scene, and I'm like, fuck, not even close to a chapter. And then yeah, I was just like, oh, like she would probably like Jules would probably invite him to Christmas at this point.
Yeah.
It seems like something that would happen.
I want to ask you about using Brighton as a backdrop because whilst, like I said, there's this like lovely moment where she's swimming in the sea and there are kind of like lovely moments that they have together, it doesn't feel like this kind of romanticized version of Brighton. It doesn't feel like, I don't want to make it sound insulting because it's a really beautiful place and I love it, but it just felt like it was not quite the colourful place that we often see in like pop culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask about the way that you wrote Brighton and what was kind of important in the way you represented it.
I think like that's really, it's good to hear you say that because I wanted to be like with my characters, like somewhere only feels real if it's like flawed too, right?
Yeah,
And it
yeah, yeah.
definitely is, like all places. Yeah, it was such a fun place to write. I guess I obviously just I grew up there and I probably know it better than anywhere. But
Hmm.
it is also, it has such character. Just like the seasons in Brighton feel so you could I could just like, the book is a pregnancy, like it's kind of the length of a pregnancy pretty much. And then it's also which a pregnancy kind of most seasons are in a pregnancy, like 3 out of 4. And yeah, like I could just write a year in Brighton so easily, just moving between the seasons because they just like can fully take over and create scenes without
Mm,
even trying. Like just winter and like massive waves and crazy wind and and it's bleak and grey and freezing and there's no one there. And then summer is just like so hectic, like you
yeah.
literally can't get down the street. And all just the funny characters, like all the slackliners. Like my mom lives really in the heart of Brighton. So like you just leave the house and you're in it. And it was really, I haven't lived there for like 10 years now.
Oh,
It,
wow.
it was like really felt like living there again when I was writing this book. It was really like
Did it make you miss it?
maybe. Yeah, it did, but also yeah, I don't know, like it just felt so whole somehow.
Yeah.
Like when you miss something and you only think of the good things, it wasn't like that. It felt like really like I could remember all the really annoying stuff about living in Brighton too,
Mm.
and that was like fun to put in.
Did the cafe actually exist?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. It's closed now, buddies. Yeah. Everything exists. And even like the geography of it. There was like one scene I can't even remember now, but I had to there was one kind of a few lines about like a direction she walks, which really shouldn't have mattered. And I'd never like all in Send Nudes, I had never been specific about setting.
Mm.
So I didn't think that I would get so bothered if like a direction was slightly wrong because it's not even like I'm naming the street they're going to
Yeah.
area, but I knew. I was like, I have to change it. I can't. I like couldn't have it.
I love that.
Yeah, so you end up writing like awkward sentences that you'd never write just to get like the geography that no one cares about. Right?
That was important to you. Does Gunk actually exist then?
No,
Okay.
no, it
Where did
does.
that come from?
That so in my mind, I know where Gunk is in Brighton, and it's where
Have you
a
got
club.
maps drawn out on the walls?
It's a small place. It's like so in my head. But it was a club, is a club still, but I don't know what it's called now. But it was called the Haunt when I lived in Brighton, and that's where and like like the kebab shop around the corner. Like it all makes sense. But the club actually in my mind is more a club in Manchester. It's more
Ah.
you ever go to Antwerp Mansion?
Antwerp, no, I've not, no.
I think it's gone. But in my head, when I
Whereabouts was that?
club, just how gross it is. It was like just off Curry Mile.
No, I've not been there, no.
It was like when I was at uni there like 8 years ago, we used to go there. But just like the horrible like pounded floor that's just like
Yeah.
something and like covered in like lost earrings and like baggies and like that was
Oh, you
to
can
me.
feel the stickiness on your feet when you're reading this book, can't you?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. So I kind of combined a few places for actual gunk.
did you ever go to Fifth Ave?
No,
Oh, I don't know when that closed.
I feel like in Manchester.
Yeah.
No, I feel like maybe it wasn't open when I was there at uni there.
Oh, I went there when I was in college, I think, and then I moved away for uni. So I don't know at what point it closed, but I just remember it being just so grim. But we all went
You
and
gotta
loved
go.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the same as writing Brighton. Like writing the club would just felt like so real. Like
Yeah.
it was, and some things just come so easily, and like I just find writing clubs so easy. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it
It's
just
such a sensory experience, isn't
yeah,
it? And I think you get that so much in this book, not just with the club scenes, but also with the sense of Brighton and with the like the sea breeze that, they leave like a window cracked open and they can feel it, and her going in the, sorry, her, Nim going in the sea and seeing like her skin change as a result of like the cold in there. And it's just, you feel like you can feel every part of it. And them having like these fried egg, I would say bombs, but I don't know what you call them in Brighton.
Yeah, that
Bam.
probably.
It's a bomb.
I'm not gonna fight you.
I mean, you've
But
lived in
yeah.
Manchester, so you would have. But yeah, it's a really sensory reading experience, and I just loved that. I felt like you were really living it with these characters. It's a wonderful book, Saba. Like, congratulations.
Thank you.
It obviously is a really short book and it packs a punch. How do you think you were able to cover so much ground but in such a short space of time? Do you think that is that you're just a natural short story writer? Do you gravitate towards reading short books? Like, where does that come from?
I do gravitate towards short books, actually. But yeah, I didn't. No, I think I did intend to write a short book, but I also think I intended to because I knew that I wouldn't be able to write a longer one. I just, yeah, the way I write, it does happen quite quickly.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's partly to do with like the way that I live also, just like having like small kids who need me a lot.
Hmm.
Um, like I'll write a bit after they go to bed. I'll write a bit like, yeah, it's not like I have all day. So when I have a scene in my mind, I like want to get it down and I want to get it all down.
Yeah.
And that means I have to do it in a short, before I like lose it and I'm not there anymore. But also, I have you read Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin?
I haven't, no.
That was a really inspiring book for Gunk because of it's very, very short and it has I read it when I was kind of like a few drafts into Gunk and I was like, oh, that is the structure. Like that's perfect. He kind of it starts with the main character, he's in the present and he's just looking back at like how he got here, and it's exactly what Jules does. And when I read Giovanni's Room, I was like, it gave me that idea. I was like, okay, that's how I need to set up this book.
Hmm.
So I think it is really inspired by short novels, and it like I knew I needed it to be just the length of the pregnancy
Hmm.
and not kind of I wanted it to be intense and quick, and I was like always working towards this birth scene that was like I knew I wanted to end on the birth scene.
I mean, the birth scene is incredible. And I think, as it's probably become very clear to listeners, I love the kind of the way that you write scenes. I've said visceral about 100 times, but it really does feel very visceral. Not only the birth scene, but the opening of the book is this really small, quiet, intimate moment between Jules and the baby. And I wanted to ask about the kind of the contrast in finding these moments of life where it's not just these big kind of dramatic life-changing moments like birth, but it's also these sort of small meaningful moments.
Yeah, I think actually I do gravitate towards the small
Hmm.
moments more, and that's kind of like the magic of fiction
Hmm.
for me, is when you can like pin down a small moment that means something much bigger about your character, or like and like your character's perception of the world. Like there's that bit in Gunk where she's eating an ice cream and it's gone soggy,
Yes.
kind of just like squeezes it,
Yeah.
and it's about and the whole thing kind of collapses in her hand, and then she's just like kind of covered in ice cream, and so is the floor, and it's all melting, and she like throws it in the bin really fast. That for me was like one of those moments when I was just like, oh no, that's what she would do. And
Yeah.
like that, it's the kind of thing you'd like see someone do on the street, and it or me, I would just be like, whoa. Like what does that mean about them, like
Yes. Yeah.
unmoved, and like what, like I would never do that.
No.
And it really, I think it just can really be so telling about a character. And then something massive like a birth scene feels that you almost have to like rein it in and make it more subtle. Like if you're making the small moments big, you have to make the big moments small, or that's how it
Hmm.
felt. And just really, really pay attention to like every tiny feeling. Like, and like I've given birth 3 times now, so I was just really like, actually when I wrote Gunk, I'd done it twice, and it was just really like a case of reliving but then equally being with your character and like letting them lead it. And then yeah, all of these tiny small moments just like keep stacking on top of each other, because that's what, you know, it's just like a really intense. But I actually wrote that birth scene initially from Nim's perspective, and that was weird because it was like became completely surreal like really fast. And I realized that's when I realized that I needed Jules, really. Like I wrote kind of a whole, I mean, it wasn't Gunk, but it was like another book from the perspective of like a kind of Nim character.
Right.
And it like went through the pregnancy and like got to the birth scene, and then I was just like, oh, like this is not the like birth being radicalizing thing that I was talking about, because she's just like on another planet, you know, like I couldn't write from the perspective of someone in labor and have them kind of like learn from it or even pay attention to it or like perceive anything from it. It was just kind of like an acid trip or something, you know. It was just like completely like strange. So yeah, I could do that like witnessing thing when I brought in Jules, and then the whole book made so much more sense to me.
I mean, like birth and motherhood is such a kind of raw personal experience, isn't it? And it's a really sensitive topic, and I do think you explore like a lot of important issues in this book, but also topics that are probably quite sensitive, you know, like the struggles of getting pregnant and how it's not a kind of linear path for many women, and IVF being unaffordable, and the fear of not being able to get pregnant, which is a very fucking real fear. I lie awake at night sometimes, like panicking about that. And I wondered if you felt kind of nervous about exploring those topics.
I don't know if I felt nervous really. I spoke to a few people, and that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Just about like the more like the process, you know, like yeah, like I spoke, yeah, the process of like having IVF. And even though it didn't really end up in the book, because I initially I think I thought that maybe Jules would have like tried. I don't know if I felt nervous. It's obviously so heartbreaking, and then at the same time so normal,
Yeah.
that it kind of just came into the book. It wasn't like I say, I was writing from Nim's perspective, and then I realized I needed Jules, and I wanted this like alternative route to motherhood. So I needed Jules to have wanted to be a mother, and then it had happened to her for her. Yeah, it just kind of came like that. I don't think I overthought it too much.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, and I also don't think I don't know. Like I think it was, yeah, like you say, laying awake at night, being scared about not being able to get pregnant. Like I had just always wanted kids all my life, and I had this idea that like we're not given what we want. So if I want this thing, I'm never gonna get it. And then in the end, that wasn't my experience. I like got pregnant really young by accident on the coil, and that's why I ended up keeping the baby, because I was like genuinely convinced that it would never happen again. You know, like I
Yeah.
think like it was quite easy for me to put myself into that space. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a real fear. I've definitely had that thought of like, oh, you know, years ago, I was like, oh, what if I accidentally got pregnant now? And, you know, didn't feel in a position in my life to have that child. And then I was like, but what if that was my only opportunity? It's crazy
Yeah.
the kind of mental sort of gymnastics we have to do around this
Yeah.
stuff. So I'm really glad that you normalized it in your book and sort of opened up that conversation. So thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I am aware of time, and I just want to say for the listeners, if it wasn't already apparent, which it is, I really loved Gunk. And I also just love Saba's writing in general. So I'm popping a link to both Gunk and Send Nudes in the show notes. Go grab yourselves a copy if you've not already got your hands on one. But before I let you go today, Saba, I would love to finish on a recommendation. So is there anything that you'd like to recommend?
Yeah, it's a film called Planet Janet.
I have not heard of this.
It's so good. It's by a playwright called Annie Baker, who I think wrote and directed it. And it's about a kind of young girl. I don't know, she's maybe like 11, 12, and her mum, whose name is Janet, who's this like kind of classic. Just the characters in it are so brilliant. Like particularly Janet is just this real narcissist mother, but you sort of that like blooms so slowly. I just really loved watching it, and I found it just like the acting and the scripts and the way the characters like reveal themselves to you is just brilliant.
Love that. Is it new?
I feel like it came out last year, but I
Okay.
could be wrong. I watched it recently.
Okay. I'll have to hunt for it. But yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on a pair of bookends again, Saba. I'm hoping that we can get you back for the next one as well.
Imagine. I can only dream of like being on the same podcast 3 times. That feels like pretty impressive.
I would love that. But yeah, for our listeners, when this episode drops, Gunk is out now. Let's go grab yourselves a copy. As I said before, Send Nudes is out now in paperback as well. So get your hands on that. And where can the listeners find you on social media? Or online? Are you online?
I am on Instagram. That's it. I have Twitter, but I never use it.
No, I'm slowly drifting from that.
Yeah. My Instagram's, I think, just my name.
Yeah.
I might have a little I don't even know the word for it.
I'll link it in the show notes. That's great. And for the listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at A Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on Twitter and TikTok. That is all we've got time for. So thank you so much again, Saba. I've loved chatting to you again and having you back.
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for listening. Goodbye.